Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Here's a little tune to help you remember. Same drive, different day. Don't you wish you were getting away? Pack your bags and come on through. Texas, Ohio, Alaska, we're up there too. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Well, I hope you like my little song. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, we're just coming out a little bit ago from the Vice President, J.D. Vance, that 1.5, so a page and a half only, memorandum is expected to be released as early as Friday once it is signed in Switzerland. This, of course, is tied to the big Iran deal. Still so many questions tonight, but I'm just going to lay it out there. I am so thankful that President Trump at least had the courage to go after Iran, to bomb the heck out of them last June. And then, as we know, in this new phase 2 as well. And let's just hope, the world should be hoping that everybody agrees, especially that Iran acquiesces, that they do live up to what they apparently are saying they're going to do, that they put it in writing, and that there is proof of performance. That's the bottom line. We should all be doing that. So why are there so many people on the Democratic side and also in the mainstream media that seem to be wanting to undermine not just President Trump, but the reality is they are undermining America. And that is where we start tonight. Also, gosh, I can't believe Robert De Niro. He's done some great parts in movies. I think he's a tremendous actor. But his comments are downright reprehensible. We're going to get to it because he essentially said, I don't really love this country based on what they're doing now and the fact that Trump is in the White House. Thank goodness President Trump is in the White House, and thank goodness he's the Energizer Bunny. I was watching the UFC fights. Many of you guys may know I went over with the WWE to Afghanistan. And so I have a lot of respect for anybody who gets in the ring in a tough fight. The UFC, oh my goodness, there were some wild kicks and blows and everything else. I was watching it last night. I was glued, watching, sort of seeing what was happening and also watching the president's reaction and watching the fighters. And I'll just say I loved the fact seeing the Medal of Honor recipients and then the FDNY, Fire Department of New York, and other police officers, and again, firefighters, first responders accompanying the fighters coming out. I mean, could there ever be a better show than seeing that moment of them walking out of the White House? And as you guys know, I've covered the White House a long time. I've been in many a president through the White House. But to see the fighters, especially on the last one, the main card where you could see them coming out first from the Oval Office. How cool was that? Walking down the Hall of Presidents, looking at all the presidents, looking at that moment. It was a great moment for America. I thought it was a very cool way to celebrate President Trump's 80th birthday. And then what does he do? There are a lot of people who were at that event last night. I know a number of them. Many of them were exhausted. It was 1, 2 in the morning. They're like, I got to go home and get my beauty rest. I got to go home and do this. No, not President Trump. President Trump hops on a plane and goes to France for the G7. And he's the same age, remember, as Biden was. What a far cry. Could there be a bigger and more apparent contrast? And people said he wasn't really sleeping on the flight. He was planning for his big meetings with the G7. He shows up sharp as a tack. He shows up and talks to Macron. And then they had a big dinner tonight with all these other individuals. Tomorrow he's got all these meetings with the Arab leaders that have to buy into this Iran deal. He's got work to behold. And then he also reveals that what did he do yesterday on his birthday? Not only did he do all the things that we saw publicly, but he also was on the phone with Putin for an hour and was on the phone with Zelensky for an hour. I mean, that's quite extraordinary. That is remarkable. We'd be lucky if we got 1 minute of that under Joe Biden, guys. But here is President Trump, because he says this deal that they have done is enormous And he says it's a far cry from anything that Barack Obama and his, quote, JCPOA, as they call it, that he said was a sham. And now the real deal is coming up. Peace through strength. Take a listen to what he said soon after he landed in France, after a whole night of fighting, a whole night of happy birthday to the president, and a whole big flight all the way to France.
So we had two big moments when they terminated the JCPOA, that was the Obama deal, the Barack Hussein Obama deal. And when I terminated that, it was very important because it was a road to a nuclear weapon. It was a horrible deal for the United States. It was a deal where billions of dollars was given to Iran. It was a deal where $1.7 billion in cash was put on a Boeing not a 757, I guess, right? But it was put on a big, beautiful Boeing 757. They needed a Boeing 747, to be honest with you, because it was a lot of cash. $1.7 billion was taken out of the banks and given to Iran. And on top of that, tens of billions of dollars was paid. So they tried to bribe them to make a deal. That didn't work. It never works. And we've done a great job. And hopefully it's going to be a good relationship and we're going to get along. And if we don't, we go back to where we started. But I don't think that's going to be necessary.
Is there anybody out there who actually thinks that there was a comparison between Trump and Biden in terms of handling Iran? What a far cry. Biden never threatened military action. President Trump is also backing it up, saying if things fold and if they don't adhere, then we're happily going to go back. We're going to keep all our military assets in theater. And guess what? The Arab countries, too, will also make sure that Iran doesn't attack them again. And then on the other hand, ever the businessman, ever the art of the deal, guys, as we know, he also said that hopefully things will prosper, that we'll see a very successful Iran, that the Middle East will want to trade with, that who knows what happens down the road. You guys know I'm half Polish. Do you think that I'd ever think that Poland and Germany would be doing business and being big business partners? Well, they've become that. Obviously, it took a long time to get over that. But who knows where the relationship goes? There are so many big things tonight. And yet, what are the Democrats doing? Listen to James Carville, who I think is sitting on a whole bunch of thumbtacks. That's a nice way to say it. And here he is. And wait till you hear what he has to say about President Trump. I can't believe it. It's like every week here on the Rita Cosby Show, we hear these crazy things from the Ragin' Cajun, and this one's a doozy.
Trump has no earthly idea of what's coming. They're not telling him. The vote against him in November is going to be breathtaking. And he's already bored. He can't stay awake. He says he's bored with the Iran war. And I'm telling you, this guy by Easter of 2027 is just going to walk away from this job. He's just going to walk away because he doesn't have any idea of what it's going to be like when he comes to grips with the massive, I mean, it's going to be massive rejection of him, anybody that has anything to do with him, anything that he has anything to do with. And he's a soft man and he gets distracted. He's obviously not well. He sleeps all the time, slobbers all over himself or whatever. I'm sticking by my thing. He won't last past Easter of 2027 because he has no idea. And they just lie to him and they try to keep from him. And it's all going to come out and it is going to be very ugly.
That is shocking. James Carville saying President Trump is not going to last past Easter. That he's going to resign? They went after him tooth and nail, and Trump won, you guys. Lawfare personified. There was Trump derangement syndrome in the first one, and yet he's still standing. And guess who's not in the White House right now? I think that sort of says it all. And yet the Ragin' Cajun is raging again and saying that President Trump is going to resign voluntarily, that he's going to say, I just can't take it. Hakeem Jeffries, I can't handle this. I mean, he obviously doesn't know Donald Trump. But boy, he has swallowed a whole bunch of Trump derangement syndrome. And I think one of the worst things I've ever seen, guys, here it is. There is the big birthday. It's the 80th birthday. That's a biggie. And obviously President Trump's still going strong. I mean, I think he's the most vibrant 80-year-old that I've ever seen. I do know Irv Locker, who's 101, D-Day veteran, and he just went over to Normandy and was looking great every time I pick up the, hi, Rita. I mean, that's amazing. Trump has the same genes. I mean, he is sharp as a tack. And yet, they did a rally, the Democrats, on his birthday, a No Kings rally. Remember, they didn't do a No Nazis rally outside of Graham Plattner's, rally the other day. That might have been a good place to do their rally, a No Nazis rally, no Nazi tattoo rally, no harassing women rally. A no mocking LGBTQ and African Americans rally outside of Graham Plattner's. That would have been the appropriate place. But no, they didn't find their way there. But yet, they did this big event with Jane Fonda and so many other celebrities out of New York. It was a No Kings event. And it was their way to say, we're standing up to Donald Trump on his birthday, even though here he is doing this great event that was totally a good show. You got to admit, however you feel about the UFC, and I'm curious to think what you guys felt when you were watching the UFC, but they're definitely good athletes. Some of it was a little hard-hitting kicks. I was like, ouch, the poor Spaniard. I felt really bad for him. I feel like when he goes back, it's going to be more than ay caramba. It's going to be, this is lo peor del mundo, the worst in the world fight I think he ever went through. Boy. But it was certainly a great show. And everybody was glued into it. But the Democrats, okay, we're going to plan a little alternate programming. So they do this event. And who do they have at the event? One of the biggest Trump haters ever, Robert De Niro. Now, Robert De Niro said his whole bunch of really horrible things about President Trump. There's no doubt about it. But I actually think some of the worst things I heard was last night from him. I found it really reprehensible. Here we are celebrating America 250, Freedom 250. What could be better? I can't think of anything else to celebrate our country and the greatness that's America. And yet, Robert De Niro had to chime in. It sounded a little bit like, remember Michelle Obama said, I don't love this country. I'm finally loving it for the first time after Barack got elected. Well, here is Robert De Niro.
The phrase, we all love our country, stuck in my throat. Because our country isn't so lovable right now. I hate to say it, but loving our country is starting to sound like an abused spouse saying they love their abuser. I can't love a country that's led by a racist, misogynist, xenophobic tyrant. And let me just say it. I can't love the country that's led by Donald Trump.
But I guess he loved the country under Joe Biden. I guess he loved the issues under Joe Biden. I guess he loved the issues over Barack Obama, but not Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump, who is trying to solve world peace at every turn. On his birthday, he's dealing with Iran, and he's picking up the phone and calling Putin and also Zelensky. And then celebrating his 80th birthday on the side, and then flying over to France to try to get all the Arab countries together. Joe Biden couldn't even pick up the phone and call Putin because Putin didn't want to talk to him. He didn't respect him. And that's why, in many ways, the world is in such a mess. And the vile comments from Robert De Niro to me are just really despicable. They're really shameful. And it shows that I believe Democrats have Trump derangement syndrome well beyond on steroids. They hate him. They hate the fact that people love him, that he still has an enormous following. And this seems to be the mantra all the way, at least until the midterm elections. That's the goal. Everything is anti-Trump, anti-this, anti-law enforcement. And that's why I was talking to some Democrats earlier. They feel like it's a civil war in the Democratic Party. You've got these extreme Trump haters, and then you have those who say, well, I don't really agree with him, but. And then anybody who speaks out, poor John Fetterman. John Fetterman has become the voice of reason. John Fetterman, who was speaking out over the weekend against Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner started slapping back at John Fetterman. Poor John Fetterman. Now he's taking abuse from people in his own party because he is doing what he believes is right. Again, the voice of reason, John Fetterman. We're going to take your calls when we come back here. The big news night here on the Rita Cosby Show. 1-800-848-9222. And we'll be right back.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And you are listening to the Rita Cosby Show, and I want to give a shout out and welcome all of our great listeners on WPHT in Philly. That is one of the great powerhouse stations in this country. I love WPHT. I've actually been to the studios there, have met many of the folks there that are on the roster. You have such a great team there at WPHT, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. And I have a big love for Philly. As I mentioned, I'm half Polish, so I did a lot of big Polish events there in Philly. But also, you are, of course, Independence Hall, and you are one of the great stations, and we love you. So I can't wait to be hearing from many of you callers in on your thoughts about some of the big issues of the day. Rich Zioli's there. My buddy Dom Giordano is there. We went to Guantanamo together. You got to make sure you ask Dom about that because, boy, we had both an exclusive access in the early days covering Guantanamo, and that was incredible. And Dawn Stensland is there, and so many others. And I'm just really honored that the Rita Cosby Show is now on WPHT, one of the greatest stations ever in America. And we're, of course, across the country, everybody. And number one, which you got to love that, too. You can't go wrong with that. And, of course, so proud to be a part of WPHT. And again, everybody, the number to call is 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. We will take your calls tonight. Also, Eric Metaxas, historian and big best-selling author, he's going to be joining us talking about his new book called Revolution, and maybe about the revolution that's going on in America right now. Maybe we can take a lesson from what happened years ago.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's 1938. The 2-week pay period is invented. But then the world got faster. Faster travel, faster delivery, faster everything. Except our pay. Until now, with daily pay, everyone can access money they've earned when they need it. Yes, this is the future of pay. Daily pay. Work with the leader in on-demand pay at dailypay.com. Transfer fee may apply.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment here on the Rita Cosby Show coming from Wharton, New Jersey, where a dramatic rescue unfolded after an 86-year-old man accidentally drove his car right into a canal during heavy rain. The driver entered the canal while attempting to make a U-turn in the dark, mistakenly believing the surface ahead was just pavement. So the officers arrived on the scene, and when they got there, a good Samaritan informed them that the driver was still trapped in the car. One lieutenant said there was water well into the cabin. I went immediately in. I smashed the window, the power locks and the power windows. They were not working due to the vehicle being submerged, so we had to extract the driver through the driver's side window. The officer said the gentleman got very lucky. If he went in slower and nose first, he could have been completely submerged. He went in, he hit the gas, so he was able to come up just a little bit. Thankfully, the officers were able to bring him to dry land, and incredibly, he was not injured. Just incredible, and great work from our men and women in blue. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey, line 3. Go ahead, Sandra, your thoughts tonight.
Oh, good evening, Rita. Last night was such a fun night. My husband asked me to make sure at 8 o'clock he watches what we watched. I would have missed it. I didn't even know. And so we watched that show together, the Freedom 250, and I couldn't get over the amount of people that showed up to him and the setting of the eagle flying into that woman's arms in the very, very beginning. That kind of set the tone. And just to see an incredible amount of people coming to see Donald Trump, you got to admit, he knows how to bring people together.
And by the way, what about that flyby, that military flyover? That was incredible. It reminded me, I was over in Normandy a couple of years ago for the 80th anniversary. And when that flyover comes, it's like people don't realize, and many of you probably have, it's like the ground shakes. You're like, whoa, what was that? And that was just breathtaking to see the military flyover. And Sandra, I loved also seeing so many of the men and women in blue. I love seeing them escorting. I love seeing the Medal of Honor recipients walking down with the fighters through the White House, them hugging in appreciation. It was just such a great patriotic evening, and that it was the best of America. And it was this fight, and it was just exciting. And boy, Dana White put on a great, great show, of course, the head of the UFC, but it was breathtaking, I thought. And the fact that President Trump, after what a long night, and then he's in the ring till like 1, 2 in the morning because the fighters want to take pictures with him and talk to him. And what does he do? He hops on a plane and goes to France to try to make sure all these pieces of the Iran deal are coming together after he talks to Putin and Zelensky. I mean, there is nobody like Donald Trump. It really was remarkable. Sandra, thank you very, very much. Before I bring in our great guest, Eric Metaxas, it sounds like Robert De Niro. I want to play this again because, boy, he's saying he doesn't like America anymore. Well, a lot of people don't like him anymore, but take a listen again.
The phrase, "we all love our country," stuck in my throat because our country isn't so lovable right now. I hate to say it, but loving our country is starting to sound like an abused spouse saying they love their abuser. I can't love a country that's led by a racist, misogynist, xenophobic tyrant. And let me just say it. I can't love the country that's led by Donald Trump.
This is crazy. Well, if you know the history of our country and the turbulence that we went through, you would have an even greater appreciation. So many people do, but I'm not sure if our young people really understand the depth of what makes America so great. And joining us now to talk about it is my dear friend Eric Metaxas, great historian. He's the author of many New York Times bestsellers, including Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He and I go way back. I remember when he was putting the book together, and now he has another big bestseller, and it's appropriately called Revolution, the Birth of the Greatest Nation in the History of the World. Eric, congrats on another big book, and boy, is it timely, given some of the vitriol that we're hearing from these people, my friend.
Thank you, Rita. I think I'm probably not going to ask Robert De Niro for an endorsement for the book. I'm just guessing.
I think you're going to, when you hear that, you go, gosh, they don't realize. You know what it made me think, Eric, too? I was watching today so many of these people coming in for the FIFA World Cup. And some of my favorite stories are these people like a German guy who ended up, I think it was at a Waffle House, and said, boy, this is incredible. And then there are others on TikTok saying, I just went to this great place called Walmart. And I went to, and they're marveling at how clean the streets are. They don't realize how great this country is.
No, it's unbelievable. And I joke around about the endorsed, asking for an endorsement from Robert De Niro. But you know who did endorse the book? President Donald Trump gave me a gigantic shout out on his Truth Social. He even linked to the Amazon page. That's like I thought, am I dreaming? That I love President Trump so much, and the fact that he would endorse the book. But,
beautiful.
We were talking about it, right? This book, this country really is the greatest nation in the history of the world. We don't say that just because we're Americans. It is a fact. And it's not because we're better. It's because the form of government we have, that we are blessed to have, is unlike anything that ever existed, where the people are the ones we rule ourselves. We're self-governing. That didn't exist in the world until 1776. And we need to know the story. I mean, we need to be grateful. And so I basically said, you know what? It's time to write a book that it's the whole book. It's just in one book is the story of what happened 250 years ago. And so, it's everything leading up to Lexington and Concord, and then Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill and all this stuff. But it is so inspiring when you know this history. And a lot of us, maybe we learned it in school, we forgot it. And it's kind of gone out of the culture, right? Where we used to, I always say that if you went 1960 and put a microphone in anybody's face in Main Street America, everybody knew all the stories of the revolution and the players and the figures and the story, And I said, we need to know. And this year, the 250th, I call it the Super Centennial, we need to go back. We need to know these stories. We need to teach these stories to our kids. They're so inspiring. I feel like we have a duty, let's put it that way. And so I said, I want to write a book that's a readable version. So, because there's millions of books on the revolution, but what do you read? And some of them, they're coming from this, if it's not a woke perspective or an anti-American perspective, it's a slightly, kind of sad perspective. They don't want to celebrate. It's like listening to De Niro or Bette Midler. They're tortured about America. They don't see the greatness of it. And I said, I want to write a book that tells the whole story. I have no angle except to tell the story. And and the reason it's titled Revolution and not the American Revolution is I said, this is the only revolution that succeeded. The French Revolution was a failure. We know all these other things, they call themselves revolutions. Only our revolution was a wild success. It's an amazing story. And again, some of these figures, Nathan Hale and Patrick Henry, all these figures, everybody in America needs to know who these folks are. So I put it in the book, and I think, I don't know if I'd communicate with you, but the New York Times, it was number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Bravo.
It was number 1 on every other list, and we checked. It sold 5,000 more copies than Jill Biden's book in the first week. The New York Times still put Jill Biden's book ahead. So we already know what we think about the New York Times. But the fact that it is even number 2 on the New York Times list and it's number 1 on the other list, I thank God, because I really believe America, we cannot really go forward unless everybody in America kind of gets the memo of who we are, what our liberties, where they come from, all these beautiful stories. So, you can tell I'm excited about it. I'm thrilled the book is doing well. But listen, we're seeing a resurgence of patriotism in America. I have to laugh when I think of last night at the White House and what's been going on. God's hand is on this nation. I've never seen anything like it, and we need it. We've needed it for years. Thank God for this president.
It also puts it in perspective because, Eric, as I think about all of the different strifes that we're going through, I mean, the crazy words from the No Kings event, all the No Kings protests, you think of the George Floyd protests, you think of all the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protests that are taking place, all of these different ones. And we're such a divided country right now, which really saddens me. I feel like I love this country so much, and I'm a first-generation American. And so for me, It's the greatest country in the world. You know my father's story. The American troops rescued my father, saved my father. And so I grew up in a home where when the military was on or a story about America, my dad was glued to the TV, you know, and was so grateful. And I hate when I see people like De Niro and others trashing it. Are you worried? How much are you worried about the next generation? Which is why I think this book is so important.
I'm not worried. I travel the country. I just got off a plane an hour ago. I was in California yesterday. Before that, I was in Idaho. Before that, I was in Colorado. Before that, I was in Phoenix. Before that, I was in Orlando, Florida. And before that, I was in Houston. I've never traveled like this. Everywhere I go, I meet the most amazing patriotic families. And I meet homeschool kids that know more about the American Revolution than adults. I have great hope for this country. And it's funny because when you tell a story of your father, which of course I know, as you know, my parents came from Europe. They loved this country. They dreamt of, could we come to America and raise our kids in America? And they raised me to love this country. And I think to myself, what my parents always taught me, coming from Greece, my dad, and Germany, my mom, they always said, Americans are the good guys. Americans are the good guys. My mother said when the war ended in Germany and the Americans came because we won, she said they knew those are the good guys. When the Russians came, because my mother was in what became East Germany, they knew those are the bad guys. Those are not the good. The Americans are the good guys. They do not rape. They do not pillage. We have always been that way. And when I did my research on this book, I got to tell you, I was amazed. I mean, I was amazed when you see George Washington sternly speaking to his officers that they will not stoop to the barbarities of the British. The British were barbaric. They were the Japanese or the Nazis in World War II, barbaric. And George Washington and the other Americans knew we don't do that. We obey God even in how we fight a war. We're the good guys. And I never really saw it so clearly before that even in the Revolution, the American spirit was, we're going to honor God in how we conduct ourselves. And we believe if we do that, God will honor us. They really believed it was a sacred cause. The British were just the opposite. And I never really saw the wickedness of the British till I did the research for this book. They were so awful the way they treated prisoners. Even when you would surrender, they would bayonet you. They didn't even observe the rules of war. Absolutely barbaric. The Americans had a different ethos. That's who we are, and we need to know that. Everybody needs to know that. We need to remind ourselves we're the good guys. We're the guys that when we win a war, we rebuild Germany and we rebuild Japan. We don't, crush them. And that's who we've been. And that's why your father taught you to love this country, and my parents taught me to love this country. And, we get it. We get it. We're not foolish enough to think what, Bette Midler and others think. I feel sorry for them, honestly. Like, I think they're so lost that they actually, in their minds, have convinced themselves that Donald Trump is a tyrant. I'm thinking they don't even know what a tyrant is. It's like move to North Korea for 20 minutes and see what a tyrant is, or even move to China or go to some country there and spout your BS and see what they do to you over there. I mean, they have no idea how blessed we are in this country. And I don't think, honestly, Rita, I don't think we're as divided as it seems when you look at the media. I really think that they have a loud voice and they have a loud big platforms. So it seems more divided. I think your average American has common sense. It's why President Trump won in a landslide. So I am, I'm hopeful. And I think in this 250th anniversary, we're reminding ourselves of who we are. I mean, again, it's why I wrote the book, because I said we need to know this. We need to remind ourselves. This is our DNA. This is who we've always been. And when we stray from it, things go bad. When we know what it is and we do it, things go well. And so I'm tremendously hopeful. And I don't just say that. I don't blow smoke. I really, I believe that. I genuinely believe that right now.
And, I agree. I agree that the average American, I think, gets it, and they have a lot more common sense than a number of the folks that we see in the media. Well, Eric Metaxas, everybody, this is another big blockbuster endorsed by President Trump and another big bestseller. Again, it is called Revolution, the Birth of the Greatest Nation in the History of the World. And also with some neat stories about the myths, the misconceptions also. I think it's great for all ages. And Eric, I'm so proud of you. This is such another great, huge book of yours. And I love you and just thrilled for you. And I'm thrilled for America, too. And I love that you're sharing the story of America because I know how patriotic you are.
Everywhere I go, and it's exciting. And again, this is our time. We need to revisit this, because we got a lot of people, they don't understand this. And we need to teach our kids and remind our neighbors and ourselves, what is the story of America? Who are the great heroes? I think of Nathan Hale and Henry Knox. These are Samuel Adams. I mean, these are huge heroes. We need to know their story. So I said, I'm going to put it all in one book. And some of it is funny and crazy. I mean, some of the stories are amazing. So I'm excited about it. And I'll just continue traveling the country throughout this summer and fall talking about the revolution. So thanks for having me on. And I hope the book continues to be a bestseller because Jill Biden's book, I mean, can you even believe that the New York Times would put that in first place? And I mean, we looked at the numbers. It's like they just don't like the fact that a book praising America could be number one. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, it pained them. They're like, okay, we got to put it on there, but it pained them. Right? But I'm so proud of you. And it's such a great story. And you're going to have a heck of a great summer, my friend, Eric Metaxas. You're going to have a great time. Eric, thank you. Congrats. And everybody get Revolution. It is an awesome, awesome book by the great historian and big best-selling author and the world traveler and the globetrotter this summer, Eric Metaxas. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you guys, we're going to take your calls when we come back. 1-800-848-9222. And you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up on the Rita Cosby Show, we will continue to also talk about Trump and Iran, the greatness of America, and also the Democratic Socialists of America seem to be taking over the Democratic Party. I hear what Eric is saying, and I agree with Eric. I think the average American is going, what the heck is going on? But then yet, the media and others are definitely sort of fueling the flames. Many people in the legacy media seem to want to undermine President Trump and are giving so much attention to these protesters. And sadly, the reality is, though, there are a number of really extreme candidates that are on the docket, and a couple of them tomorrow night, of course, in the primaries, too. There's a big one there for D.C. mayor. And President Trump has already said, if the socialists win, we might have to take over D.C. again. Let's go to the calls. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Stan in Forest Hills, line 5. Go ahead, Stan.
Good evening. You know what interests me? I took a quick look at that thing last night, and then I turned it off. But I don't know. It reminded me of World Championship Wrestling and that type of thing. I don't know why that was at the White House. You want to celebrate the country, fine. I have no problem with that aspect of it.
What about all the Medal of Honor guys? What about all the Medal of Honor guys being heralded? And then you saw Fire Department of New York and other fire departments and other police officers. I mean, there was a lot of American greatness on display.
The Medal of Honor winners, of course, that's a great thing. But you don't need this crap of wrestling there and so on. That's not what boxing. That's not what this is about. And you can be sure the administration was paid to put that in there. So that wasn't free. So as far as I'm concerned, it was an embarrassment, that part of it.
Well, Stan, I look, President Trump obviously has a close relationship with Dana White, who's head of the UFC. Clearly, he put a big investment in to make it happen. It certainly was an incredible show. And I love the fact that a lot of people got to see the Medal of Honor recipients, got to see the president and his family. Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?